And good morning on YouTube, y'all. We are going to bring in our Facebook group, and we'll go on X on the Falcons podcast on a chilly Monday morning, an action-packed weekend as we hit Monday. Looks like we're good to go. Welcome in, everybody. This is the Falcons podcast. It is Monday morning. It is a chilly day. Happy MLK Day. And hopefully some of y'all have the day off. I know the kids do from school. But, when you work in sports, most holidays you're working. But you also get the privilege of sitting by the pool on a Wednesday in July and kicking your feet up. So happy to be here, and I'm glad you're here. I know we had a busy weekend. The Falcons have moved with urgency this cycle. We weren't sure if they were going to fire, what they were going to do after the season. Well, we found out the night of the season. They fired Raheem Moore. By the end of the next day, Rich McKay was out from the Falcons, and Terry Fontenot was too. Fast forward a week later, and they hire Matt Ryan as president of football. Fast forward another week, and they've got their head coach in Kevin Stefanski. By the end of this week, I think they'll have their general manager as well, and we will be cooking with gas, getting ready for the Senior Bowl, scouting, the scouting process, and free agency. So it has been an action-packed January for sure. We'll get into those things. Kevin Stefanski's staff has started coming together. We'll hit on some of those. We'll hit on the top 2 general manager candidates, and then we'll discuss. We'll, for some of y'all, if we've had roughly 36 hours to digest this news, there's no 100% consensus on this. So we'll talk some of the pros, some of the cons, and we'll listen to what y'all have to say. But we'll get going, and we go live because I want to have the conversation with y'all. It's so much more fun than just talking blindly. I like having the interaction. And Psalm was in here before anybody, and Psalm is out in California, so he's up bright and early. Says good morning, Scott, and the Falcons podcast. That's all, y'all. Welcome in. Austin coming in on the mobile version says good morning, Falcons podcast. That's all, y'all. Glad to see Jeff Ulbrich is back. Yep, that's one of those one of the moves that was made. Arthur Blank, it's not one of the conditions, and he said that's not one of the conditions, but he says, I like him, and I think it'd be a good guy to have. He is. We all said that. So that's not necessarily meddling. I think Kevin Stefanski, who wasn't going to be bringing his defensive coordinator with him from Cleveland, says, hey, they've got a pretty good guy in place. We like what they did. Hopefully he can stay here. He had the backing of all the people in the room, and Jeff Ulbrich is back. I think that is an excellent move. I am happy for it. One of the other moves they make is longtime offensive line, has some head coach experience, some offensive coach experience. He's 69 years old. I think of this as the Dean Peace hire, the old head in the room, but Bill Callahan will be taking over the offensive line, which does mean Dwayne Ledford will be coaching somewhere else, and good for Ledford. Hopefully he gets a spot he loves, and he's made enough money that he doesn't have to if he doesn't want to. He can do whatever he wants to. He's earned it. He has done a fantastic job with the Atlanta Falcons, and whether he wanted to stay, didn't want to stay, I don't know. But what I do know is he's no longer with the Atlanta Falcons after 5 really good years. When we speak Dwayne Ledford's name, we will speak well. Bill Callahan has a good track record on the offensive line. The Browns, when they were winning their games with Stefanski, Callahan was their head coach, was their offensive line coach, and they were just bullyballing people and playing that AFC North style of football. And they were really good on the offensive line. So good to see that hire. And then says Red Stefanski wants a say in the general manager. Well, get a say in the general manager. I mean, just like I would guess that whoever is hired as general manager got a phone call, said, hey, or at least during the interview process, first round of interview process, informally, formally, hey, you're the president. They've talked to these guys. What do you think about working with Kevin Stefanski? Those conversations happen. Are we leaning Williams of San Francisco or Cunningham of Chicago, or neither? I think it's got to be one of those two guys. I've seen some comments. Saw some comments. We're doing this bass backwards again, hiring the coach before the general manager. Man, if you don't think that they're not all talking about one another, you're insane. This isn't done blindly. And the second part of this is they are separate. The coach and the general manager will work together, but they are on the same line of the org chart, and that's not uncommon. That's actually pretty common these days. General manager, I don't know the numbers of it, but they're not always hiring the head coach anymore. It's a separate position. I mean, it's an equal position. Report upward. Some report directly to ownership, like the last regime. Some report to a president or CEO, which is what will happen this year. Matt Ryan is now that guy. I read the bios on both of them. I'm like, yes, I want that guy. I started this morning with Josh Williams, San Francisco 49ers, scouting background, finance background, the money ball and the analytics, is there. Spent buku years on the road as an area scout, as a national scout. And then you have Cunningham, who has done a lot of the same background in scouting. So, very heavy draft, coming from the Ravens, coming from the Philadelphia Eagles, and then his last 2 years, I believe, he's with the Chicago Bears. Good schools, smart guys. One of them went to Columbia. Josh Williams went to Columbia. The other one went to the University of Virginia. Both played a little bit in college. I think Ian Cunningham was an offensive lineman. Those guys that have to work, claw, and scrape, that are Virginia smart, University of Virginia smart, one of the top public schools in the nation. Those are the kind of guys I like. Finance background, an analytical background, and those are the kind of guys I like. It was reported the people that were picking Stefanski, and I don't remember if that was Chad Forbes or not, who I don't know, but I know the name now. He was all over the Stefanski. He was all over Josh Williams coming in with Kubiak as one of the guys. Then I think he started leaning towards Stefanski. And then the New York reporter said it was always the Falcons or Giants for Harbaugh, and the loser would go after Stefanski. That happened, coincidentally or not. There's a lot of ties with the Bears and the Atlanta Falcons in recent years. So Cunningham makes some sense, but so does Josh Williams. Whoever gets him gets the promotion as a minority coach, unless there's some loophole, and there shouldn't be because they've both been there long enough, and it's a promotion to a general manager spot. If they hire Williams, the 49ers get 2 third-round compensation picks because they both are minority hires. And then Cunningham, if he's hired, the Bears would get 2 third-round comp picks in, I don't know if that'll be 2026 or 2027, to be honest with you. Probably next year, probably 2027. It's got to be one of those two, Austin. Another PR, I was like, no, man, this was last year. He says, is it correct that Marquise Williams is at the Shrine Bowl as head coach? It is true. He is the head coach of the Shrine Bowl again. He was the Shrine Bowl head coach last year. Atlanta Falcons special team coach. Can't say former yet, but it's coming, because there's just no way, unless he's got some dirt on Arthur Blank, that Marquise Williams is special teams coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons next year. But he is, for the second straight year, the head coach of the East team at the East-West Shrine Bowl in Texas. So it is happening again. Silas, good to see you. Feel like it's been a while, Silas. Says good morning, everyone. He's got the coffee emoji. Right back at you. I'll drink to that. John Harrell. John, hope you're doing well. Thank you for being a member also. He says, Scott and Nick and Falcons family, that's all y'all. He says, I'm still not sure about this hiring. Make me trust the process. I think the process was good. I don't necessarily trust the process. You wipe the slate clean. You go for a complete culture shift by getting rid of a lot of the old voices in the room. Terry had been there for 5 years, which is a generation in the NFL. Rich McKay's been there for 20 years, which is a lifetime in the NFL. Those two are gone. Raheem Morris has spent a lot of years in that building too. He was with the Falcons for 5-6 years as an assistant, interim head coach, then 2 years as head coach. He's gone. You bring in Matt Ryan, who is a well-respected leader in this community and in the NFL, to head up football. Now you bring in a 2-time coach of the year who's 43 years old, who won with the Cleveland Browns in a place that's almost impossible to win before it eventually and inevitably fell apart. That happens, especially in Cleveland, especially when you give up 6 draft picks, including 3 first-round picks, and $45 million a year in guaranteed salary. The worst part of this for Cleveland, and the extent they've been trying to kick the can down the road. They still have the Cleveland Browns after 4 years. They still have $130 million. They've only been through $100 million. They've only accounted for $100 million of Deshaun Watson's contract. They still have $130 million on the books. If they cut him right now, it would be I think will be $130 million dead cap. He's got an $85 million cap hit this year. They'll have to restructure him again to create some room and push some more money down. They're going to be paying him like Bobby Bonilla. He's gonna end up signing a contract with deferred money for $5 million a year for the next 20 years. That's bad. Your big free agent signing was Jerry Jeudy. He was with the Broncos. He was a diva wide receiver who was an underperformer and disappeared in big moments. I was thinking about Jerry Jeudy, and I was like, he's Calvin Ridley light, but then worse. The things you like about Calvin Ridley, Jerry Jeudy's probably a little not quite as good at. The route running, the catching, the actual play, the distraction on the team, and being a pouty diva, he's probably a little worse. So I don't know who the general manager is at Cleveland, and I don't know if he's been the general manager for 5 years, but he's made some. You ought to be. I mean, obviously, the Deshaun Watson one's fireable right there. They've made some questionable moves in that tenure, and I see people say, "Well, if he didn't like what they were doing, why didn't he just quit?" Because that happens. I'm going to walk away on my contract that's paying me 8 figures and just leave. No, you don't have to stay long. One bad season in the NFL, and you're probably going to get fired. Took 2 because he's had such success. 2 years and he's gone, gets his buyout, picks his next job. And which is better? Oh, he had 2 losing seasons in Cleveland, or he quit. Which is more damaging to your to your Q rating? Definitely stick it out. Stick it out. Well, he's not quitting. Nobody quits. Well, Mike Tomlin just quit. Yeah, and it was a shock. It was a shock. It does happen. And that's the exception to prove the rule. Otherwise, nobody just quits. Why didn't you just quit? Sure, because that happens so often. 9 guys got fired this year. Nobody quits. They all get their buyout on that. It is good to see you, Michael Ronquillo. The Ronk coming in, the sunrise. Now that Broncos for Breakfast is going head-to-head with the Falcons podcast on Mondays, we don't get to see you quite as often. So very happy to see you here. I know you're up bright and early with us as well. Let me hit retweet on this repost on this Falcons podcast on X real quick. Do the same if you happen to see it and you're watching on there. Sam, good morning, Sam. Hope you are doing well. And AJ is a new member, followed the call to action. And want to say thank you. We've gotten several new members, so I want to call out a couple of names over the weekend who also became members, give you some shout outs. AJ, Schmitty Falcons fan, Abel, and Mark Karani and Craig Hurst. And I mentioned Devontae and Jason Duckworth last week. So 5 new members. Thank you so much. AJ, I actually saved your comment. I saw the notification on my phone because I thought it was a good one. Just how close are these Atlanta Falcons? He's got it was on our gut reaction, has a real nice post saying, I preferred Harbaugh, LaFleur, and Kubiak. Understandable. Those are great candidates. But winning 11 games for that dysfunctional franchise is crazy good, and doing it twice. Nobody's done it since. Did Belichick win 11? I don't remember for sure, but other than that, it was the 80s. No one else had won 11 games, and he did do it once in a 16-game season. So apples to apples there for Kevin Stefanski. Matt Nagy was coach of the year. Not twice he wasn't. I love the Days of Thunder, the ultimate arrogant comeback. You got a little loose coming out of corner 3, the NASCAR racing movie. Coming out of the corner, you got a little loose, you got lucky there. And Tom Cruise's character says, if you think it's luck, let's do it again. Well, he did it twice. He did do it twice. But talking about, AJ says, I'm excited to see what's next. If 2 things happen, can you not screw up timeouts at the end of halves and hire a decent special teams coordinator? Doesn't that seem like just the basics? Just don't be awful on special teams and don't have awful clock management at the end of halves. That seems like the basics for what you would expect, doesn't it? Well, the Falcons didn't have it. Those are pretty low expectations. And if they have those 2 things, they're probably 11-6 and in the playoffs, and there's not a dominant team in these playoffs. The closest thing right now is the Seattle Seahawks, and we all know Sam Darnold is capable of having a game that you can't win with. A CJ Stroud type of game. So it's such a missed opportunity this year that they had, and it's frustrating. It is. And who else was frustrated besides y'all? Arthur Blank was. He freaking cleaned house is what he did. Trenton says, Scott, the Falcons are a competent team. Let's fly. We'll see. There's going to be, nobody gets them all right. Hey, trust the coaches. I trust the coaches to do what they think is right. I don't trust them to get it right. We're going to be on here in September and October going, why on earth did they do this? That's what we do. Call those micro problems. Macro problems are the special teams are the worst in the league, and they can't figure out how to use timeouts at the end of halves, and the clock management is awful, and they're losing 1-score games by the handful because of it. Those are macro problems. Those are fireable offense. Mike, I hate to get into this. Says, why so much racial animosity on this hire by a large segment of fans calling Ryan Stefanski racist? I don't get it. It's a real hard subject for a 53-year-old white guy to get into. It is. Let's just say I think there is everybody has turned everything racist. I used to call it Race Baiters Inc. with Jesse Jackson in the 80s and stuff, and that has gone nuclear in the last 10 years. The divided country is what politicians want, because if they're all together, then they're less controllable. It's easier to control small segments. I don't want to get into all of this right now, but let's just say there is a very clear race baiting has gone to a nuclear level with social media and the political climate that we're in. That's one reason. 2, Shedeur Sanders is arguably the highest profile draft pick in years. And he's the highest profiled 5th round draft pick in history. There's a very clear correlation between how you feel about Shedeur Sanders and how you feel about Kevin Stefanski. That's it. And frankly, I don't care. I look at Shedeur Sanders for him as a player and his accomplishments. I look at Kevin Stefanski as a coach and his accomplishments. And then let's see what happens. Stefanski is a coach who has had some success in Cleveland and a place it's hard to have success. Shedeur Sanders is a very gifted 5th round draft pick, and hopefully he'll get a chance to mature. Wasn't going to happen last year. Not with that team last year, but a reset for both of them, for Cleveland and for Kevin Stefanski and for Shedeur Sanders, I think is a positive for everybody. So that's what I think. I just don't care. At this day and age, that makes me a bad person for being colorblind. I don't care. I do care, but I don't care. I always say, you want me to prove it? Mystique is hot. The X-Men, Mystique was blue. Mystique's hot. She's blue. I don't care. Good is good. Hot is hot. That's what I think. That makes me a bad person in your eyes. So be it. But I I don't care. I don't have it all figured out. Why would I presume anybody else does? So, or try and push my views on other people. Prove it to me. Show me. Trent says, I vow more super chance, more money spent. Well, Trenton, we love you for it. Certainly helps keep the lights on, keeps his forehead nice and shiny for sure. God, Jay Black, I don't want to get into this again, but maybe it's a good time to come together, especially today on MLK Day. I wonder sometimes, with some of the narratives out there, how would MLK be seen today? Not the color of your skin, but the content of your character. Yes, MLK Day. But Jay Black says, as a black human, I will say Matt Ryan is not racist. Anyone saying so can kick rocks. I support this team in mass decision. Guys, it'd be real hard to make it in sports if you are a white man who's racist in this day and age. It'd be real hard. NBA, MLB, NFL, there's not really a majority anymore. It's at least 50-50, and there's Asian, black, white, brown, Latino, European. No. Can you play? I once said, and then I'll move off of this unless it's something y'all want to get into. I don't even remember his name because he didn't last very long. I said, when we have true equality, the defensive end from Missouri was like the first player to come out as gay before the draft. I said, when we have equality, when everybody has the same reaction that I do, I don't care. Congratulations. Can he get the quarterback or not? That's what I care about. That's what I care about. So I'm getting it's just, again, it's a tough topic for the middle-aged white guy to get into without getting a lot of hate. And it makes me nervous. It really does. It really makes me nervous. So let's get into some of the, but AJ, thanks for becoming a member, and I appreciate y'all, touching on this, and you've given some super chats on this as well. But AJ coming back and saying, does Tyler Linderbaum become a priority this free agency with Stefanski and Callahan? Is Linderbaum a free agent? There's no way he is free agency. I didn't think he was going to be available anyway. And a Pro Bowl / All Pro lineman with the Baltimore Ravens. Let me see. I'll look at 2025. Has he been in the league 4 years already? And I'm sure, was he a first round draft pick? Because then they'd put an option on him. I just don't know that you could get to him. Tyler Linderbaum, he's 25 years old. And let's see. He is the club. That's right, because he's a center. The club, it looks like they may have declined his 5th-year option, which would have been $23 million on the 5th-year option. So they'll make a priority to re-sign him. I'll be shocked if they don't. And frankly, I don't want to spend that kind of money. I don't want to spend $18 million on a center. I'd rather spend $5 on. Golly, I get Drew Dahlman in my head. Why am I drawing a blank on this? On who's our center? Not Drew Dahlman. He replaced Drew Dahlman. Somebody help me out here. I'm drawing a complete blank as we're live on this one. But I'm happy with the center that I can't remember his name right now as we're going on. I watched too much Chicago Bears yesterday. John says, we know the details of the contract yet. That doesn't usually happen as much. It ekes out a little bit later. They're required with the players union to do, and the salary cap, they're required to do the contracts for the players, but not for coaches and general managers. So we'll see if that leaks out. Leroy, I hope you're doing well. Good morning. Charles West, good morning as well. Chris Walker, OG on Facebook, a little high up here. He says, good morning, Scott, and everyone watching. That's all, y'all. I've seen a lot of people who are upset about our new head coach. I don't think he's a horrible hire, but I kind of wish Kubiak would have gotten a second interview. Of course, if Stefanski was their guy, they needed to make sure he didn't have the building. Yeah, you were competing for Stefanski with several other teams. And, if you could have gotten early indications on a preference from Kubiak. That's not hard. He's going to have a choice. And people are talking to his agent, even if he was your number one guy. But Stefanski is a legit number one as well. And all it's going to take, and I kind of hit on this, I don't know how well I articulated it, on Saturday night at midnight. But once Stefanski is an Atlanta Falcon, and guys like blowhards like Skip Bayless are taking shots at Stefanski, the Falcons fans they'll circle the wagons. They will. We saw it happen 100 times. Remember the initial reaction to the Kirk Cousins, Michael Penix fiasco? Everybody was like, what on earth are they doing? Then by the end of 6 weeks later, everybody's like, oh yeah, this was a genius move by Terry Fontenot. People are fans. They want to believe, they want to protect, and they don't like, hey, I can call my general manager an idiot, but Bayless, you don't get to. It's like a sibling thing. Falcons fans will circle the wagons on this. And it's okay to be skeptical of this hire. If you're placing bets, I'll bet 10-1 right now that Kevin Stefanski is fired. You know what makes me think that? Every Atlanta Falcons coach that has ever been hired, short of Bobby Petrino, who would have been fired, has been fired. Every single one of them. Just a matter of time. What can you accomplish on the way? Now, can we get 10 years and 7 playoff runs before it starts to, you need a new voice and you need a change? That'd be nice. It's not coaches are hired to be fired. I told you he was going to be fired. He was going to be good. Oh, wow. That's really going out on a limb. I pulled that out on X also. It's not going out on a limb to say that this will eventually go bad. It almost always does. There are very few coaches in the history of this league anywhere that get to leave on their own terms. Very few. So will he have some success along the way? Mike Smith did. Dan Reeves did. Dan Quinn did. Before it goes bad, and then you try and do it again. You just hope that you build with your general manager hire, with your general manager hire and your president of football hire, that you build an infrastructure that is strong enough to support that change. If you have one bad season, or you make a change, or somebody leaves, that the structure as the whole is good enough, and that's why the premier franchises in the NFL stay premier franchises, and the dregs of the NFL have stayed the dregs of the NFL, despite the things the league does to try and prop up lesser teams. What are they? There's a a phrase in soccer is like, quality tells, something like that. If you're good, you're good. And some teams have a better history, infrastructure for long-term success. Hopefully Arthur Blank is rebuilding that now, because there's a lot of good pieces in place in this city. We know this. The stadium, the financial backing. Arthur Blank is a good man to work for. He'll spend the money on free agents. He will invest in this team. Those are all good things. Now get the right people. That's been the hard part. That's been the hard part on that. Let's see here. Mike also coming in saying that Bill Callahan was hired as offensive line coach. I like it. I do too. He's the old head. How much longer does he want to go? He's got some head coaching experience with no desire to be a head coach again. Those are good guys to have on staff. Those are the consiglieres, the old heads. It's who the Falcons offense needed last year, the last 2 years. You bring in a first-time offensive coordinator, play caller. They really could have used a guy like Bill Callahan in there to, a steady voice with history, a wise old man in there. They missed on that. You can have a bunch of young guys, that's fine, but you need somebody on that side of the ball. I do like the hire. If I have my druthers, do I want to keep Dwayne Ledford? Probably, but that's okay. Can you replace quality for quality? But thank you, Mike, and thank you for being a member. Charles West, thank you, my friend. He says, Scott, you're the best Falcons show on YouTube. Well, I certainly appreciate it. With people like y'all, the support, the channel has definitely grown. The views are up. We did a bunch of views over the weekend, and then I'm looking forward to, how I really first started building this channel at all was with Senior Bowl stuff and an NFL draft thing. So we're gonna hit that hard. I'm heading for Mobile in about, that's next week. I'll leave Tuesday morning. They've changed the practice schedule a little bit. So instead of Monday night, I'll leave Tuesday morning. Tuesday practice, get a first look at everybody. We'll go live on Wednesday. Wednesday practice, Thursday practice, get home late on Thursday night. We might go live on Friday if I have any energy left. Those road trips and working those 16-hour days were a lot easier when I was 33 instead of 53. And Ryan Newsel, thank you, Mike. Ronk coming in with a super chat to remind me. I just totally blanked on that. And it's a little behind the scenes, like y'all even care. But, you're here with me this morning. I am awful at crossword puzzles. I'm awful. Because if I find something that I think fits, here's a 4-letter word for, it's a 4-letter word here that fits that means defecation. I'm like, well, shit. I can't think of anything else. Well, poop, crap, that fits too. Great show this morning, Scott. I can't think. I get locked in. I can't think. So I get Drew Dahlman stuck on my head. I'm done. So that's when I needed a break, and it's hard to do that to look it up. What the hell's the name of this guy? I can't believe I'm stuck on Drew Dahlman. So thank you, Michael, on this. And Mike, this is one of the guys I was thinking of too, was Tom Landry. If Tom Landry can get fired, if John Harbaugh, what was it, Marty Schottenheimer, LA Chargers ref. I think he was 14-2, if I'm not mistaken. I think he was 14-2. His record in LA, and before they hired him, and it was San Diego at the time, 1997, under Kevin Gilbride, who I most remember him with Buddy Ryan taking a swipe at him on the sidelines with the Houston Oilers, I think it was. 97, they're 4-12. 98, they're 5-11. 8-8, 1-15, 5-11. Then they hire Schottenheimer, who had really good success with the Cleveland Browns in the 80s. Schottenheimer goes 8-8 in his first year, 4-12, then 12-4, then 9-7, then 14-2. And they lost in the divisional round after a 14-2 season, and they fired him. And that's about when he said, I've had enough. He was 63 years old and didn't coach again after that. That to me is a little crazy on that. So, be careful. Be careful what you ask for. I think playoffs they're fun, but I think they're completely unfair. It's not quite as bad in the NFL when you're playing so many games, but the whole get hot at the right time thing, it's like, oh, well, do I not need to watch then in September and October because those games don't matter? It tells me, hey, just watch when the games matter then. So I think playoffs are unfair. I'd take a 14-2 in a first round exit for a couple of years. I don't know about you. I'd be happy to watch 17, 18 weeks of really, really good football. I'd take that. He says, making sure my super chats work. They're working, brother. Keep them coming. So thank you, my friend, and thank you for being a member. Matt Kilgore says, I feel like Stefanski was the second most sought after hire this cycle. I'm proud of the Falcons for getting him. He was definitely well sought out. He was a hot commodity, and it was a good get. How it turns out, it's like recruiting. The highest recruited guy might not work, but it was a good job of getting the guy you wanted amongst the competition. It was a good recruiting job by Matt Ryan, Arthur Blank, and the Atlanta Falcons, without a doubt. Whether it works out or not, we don't know. But where it happens. Sean, he's not a big fan of this. He says, clean house, just end up cleaning house again. We'll see. We'll see. I think Matt Ryan's probably got a chance to stick around if he wants to. You put $250 million in the bank, you might decide you don't want to do on all of this as much. Let's see, as we're coming through this. I got over some. I'm skipping over some of the comments earlier, going back down towards the bottom to get here. Michael Lewitzki of Island Mike, hope you're doing well. Hope you're staying warm. He says, I read the Falcons didn't want Kubiak because he was too laid back and wouldn't make a great leader. I don't buy that. That's somebody speculating. The other speculation was that Matt Ryan preferred somebody with previous experience, which would take away which would take Kubiak out of the mix. That's speculation, and I don't buy that he was out of it because he's too laid back. Laid back's okay as long as you surround yourself with some fire and brimstone guys. Ulbrich can be that guy. Bill Callahan, I need you to be the bad guy. I'm going to bring in my old head. I need you to be the bad guy on this. So you have a big staff for a reason. And I don't buy that at all. I think they like Stefanski. They wanted Stefanski. They hired Stefanski. And as far as the other top candidates, I don't think Kubiak is as highly sought as we think he is. I don't know. It seems like, the national press doesn't give him near the same love that we have down here in Atlanta. And I don't understand why. Maybe we're right down here and they're wrong. It's like, oh, he ends up in Arizona. Yeah. I think he's got he's a better candidate than to end up in Arizona. Sorry, Arizona. For, saying that, but Arizona hasn't been a great franchise and it's not a great job. Then I think Kubiak is a really good candidate. And I think really, y'all, the other, as far as assistants go, first-time assistants, the main guy right now, coming out of the Harbaugh and Ravens tree, both Harbaughs now, I think the main guy is probably Jesse Minter. And I'll be a little surprised if he doesn't end up in either Baltimore or Pittsburgh, which are, the two top open jobs as far as I'm concerned. So I think Minter is probably the number one candidate among assistants right now. But again, we would have pushed him down here because we don't want another defensive assistant. Now it's worked out really well in Pittsburgh, when they've only hired 3, but three coaches, and I think all of them were defensive assistants at the time. But I wanted an offensive guy, and it looks like Matt Ryan, again, my experiences watching Matt Ryan biased me towards wanting an offensive coach. It obviously did Matt Ryan as well. Charles coming back in. Who do you think will be the best offensive coordinator hire for our success? Kevin Stefanski. I mean, it's basically his offense. It looks like he's going to bring in Tommy Rees, who was his offensive coordinator in Cleveland. Tommy is a young guy who has put in a lot of work. I scouted him in high school when he was coming out, and he started his coaching career as a graduate assistant with Northwestern. Then he was an offensive assistant with the San Diego Chargers, and then he spent 6 years with Notre Dame, including as offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. And then he was in 2023. He was offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach for Alabama. He was doing some work there because Saban is not calling plays. Didn't work out at Alabama 2023. And then was that when Saban retired? And they bring in a guy that runs his own offense, and he goes to the NFL. And frankly, this day and age, the NFL is so much better a job than college with the transfer portal. I almost want to say, hey, you should hire me in college because I've had experience coaching travel baseball. I've had to put together teams week by week. I know what it's like. A travel baseball coach is the best experience you could possibly have for college football these days. You got to build another team every single year. Then he was offensive coordinator this past year with the Cleveland Browns. So it'll be a combination, Charles, of Tommy Rees and Kevin Stefanski again. And it will be an offense that this team has been built for. I think it'll be heavy on running, play action, moving people, tight ends. Kyle Pitts should say, yeah, I want to play on that offense. So, I expect Kyle Pitts to be an Atlanta Falcon next year, whether it's on a 1-year deal or a tag, we'll see. But I think that we'll see. And Mike coming back in with a super, he says, will this work? Got to get a quarterback settled one way or the other. If it's Michael Penix, it's settled. If it's not, this may be a couple years. And Stefanski knows this. Matt Ryan knows this. Arthur Blank should know this, that there's no sure thing with Michael Penix right now. It was as the Falcons pissed away 2024 and ended the season, They all talked about Penix. We're so excited next year because of Penix. We're all, they threw all their eggs in the Michael Penix basket. Michael Penix, the quarterback play with the Atlanta Falcons was not good in 2025. Those guys are all gone. That's not a coincidence either. Penix got hurt. If he comes back and plays well, it's his job and stays healthy. Obviously, that's the ticker here where it says become a member of the Atlanta Falcons podcast. Might as well say anything that we say on this podcast is subject to people staying healthy. Injuries change everything. But Penix is going to get the chance for a couple of reasons. One, he's in the third year and still relatively unproven, and you've seen glimpses of some really good things. Two, there's no first round draft pick to go out and get. Three, there's no quarterback you were going to get at 13, even if you had a first round draft pick that you would say, oh yeah, I'm excited about him. This isn't a great year for quarterbacks. It's not 2022 bad, but it's not good either. And four, you don't have a free agents available or the free agency money to go out and get a guy that whose contract would demand he starts. So 2026 is a Michael Penix prove it year. And if whatever answer you get, we'll decide what you do in 2027 on that one. That's how I feel about that one. That's how I feel about the quarterback position. There's some talk about Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins could be back. Stefanski coached him with the Vikings. He will not be back on this contract. The Falcons would tear up this contract, incur a $35 million dead cap hit. That's going to happen no matter what, unless Kirk gives money back. Ha ha. Yeah, like coaches are quitting too. Quarterbacks are giving money back. Well, Derek Carr did it. Yeah, it's the exception that he retired and gave up money. That just doesn't happen. So quarterback position, Kirk Cousins could be back. He'll have to tear up his contract. $35 million goes on the book. They can spread that across 2 years, and then he would get a new contract. That is a possibility. Definitely, it's a possibility. 10 Cam talking about, Bijan, in the running game. That's the basis of this offense. The 2023 team, Kevin Stefanski's 2023 team with the Cleveland Browns was unbelievable. Nick Chubb got hurt that year too. They had 5 quarterbacks start games that year. Cleveland Browns ref. Nick Chubb gets hurt in the second game of the season, and they had 5 quarterbacks start games in 2023, and they were the number 10 scoring offense in the NFL. That's unbelievable. Joe Flacco started 5, Deshaun Watson started 5, PJ Walker started 2, Dorian Thompson-Robinson started 3, and Jeff Driscoll started 1, and they went 11-6 with Nick Chubb going out in the second game of the season. That's unbelievable. A healthy Bijan Robinson in this offense, Kyle Pitts, Drake London. This will be the best set of weapons that Kevin Stefanski has had, and it's one of the things that makes this job attractive. It made the job attractive for sure. Terry, he says no one knows who the hell Sean Payton's offensive coordinator is. Will be the same with whoever Stefanski brings as offensive coordinator. We'll see. Stefanski, under some pressure, gave up play calling a couple of times. But Tommy Rees, we'll see how involved they are. I know who it is. It's Dave Lombardi. I think he was offensive coordinator with San Diego. I'll say that till I die. With the LA Chargers, and has come over to Sean Payton. But Davis Webb is a young guy from Texas who is getting head coaching interviews. He is Sean Payton's passing coordinator. So he's getting interviews for offensive coordinator, and he's actually gotten a couple head coaching interviews. So, coming out from the Sean Payton tree is also a very good resume enhancer too. But Lombardi got his chance and he wasn't very good. And right now he's just he might be a lifelong assistant, and he can have a hell of a career winning a lot of games with Sean Payton on that one. That's what I've got on that. Charles says, since we have Stefanski, does that help with the possibility of keeping Algier? You never say never, but I don't want to put $7-8 million into Tyler Algier when I've got Bijan Robinson. We saw his touches go down as the season went on, and Tyler has earned the right to be running back, a starting running back in this league. So I think that's what I think Tyler Algier is gone. I've had him since the day they drafted him. They drafted Bijan. I've had Tyler Algier gone after this contract. And frankly, I've said this a zillion times. I'll say it again. The best thing to happen to Tyler Algier was Bijan Robinson, because he was on a rookie deal. He was a late round pick, and he's grossed $4 million in a 4-year career. Now, that's nice money. Trust me, I'll take it. You want to offer me $4 million for the next 4 years? I'll retire in 4 years. But for a 22, 23-year-old person, $4 million is not necessarily life-changing money, especially for a professional athlete. It's life-changing. It's not life-guaranteeing for the next 50 years of their life. He'll triple his money next year. He'll put $8 million in the bank next year, in the next 12 months, between a signing bonus and his salary. He'll make $8 million next year. And good for him. He wouldn't have been able to do that if he had 1,500 touches over the last 4 years. He would be washed up, beat up, and spit out. But right now he's seasoned without being beat up. So looking forward to it. Looking forward to watching him play. I'm going to be a Tyler Algier fan for life. Looking forward to watching him play again. Let's see. I think that's about the main things I wanted to hit on. I had written down Bill Callahan. Oh, one of the interesting things, Pro Football Reference, as you're looking these guys up, what they have done, it also says, who have they worked for? Do you think this guy can tell some stories in his career, besides being in and around the NFL and college football for almost all of his life, as he's pushing 70? He's worked for Jason Garrett, character down in Dallas. He's worked for Jay Gruden. He's worked for Eric Mangini. Do y'all remember him? He's worked for Rex Ryan, another off-the-wall dude. And he's worked for John Gruden. He's also, worked for Kevin O'Connell and Jim Harbaugh. But those guys have actually worked for him. This dude could have some stories. So definitely fun. Real Talk Gamer says, how do you expect the new regime to approach this year's draft? Good question. All I can say for me is get positions of need and value when you can. I think that should be everybody's philosophy. The best prospect available thing, while ignoring needs, is, I don't particularly like that. Now, if you're in the top 10, okay, that's one thing. I might be able to get if I can get a multi-year Pro Bowler here, get him. And if you do, then that's good. But you've got to, when I get down past the top 7 or 8 players, the difference between player 18 and player 20 is in the eye of the beholder. There is no best prospect available at that point. I want to find the best guy. I've got tiers of guys. Like if I look at grades, like I'm watching Madden, and if I've got 4 guys that I've got rated 88 that are next on my board, I need to pick the one that I need the most. And the Falcons historically haven't been great at that. Weren't great at that under Terry Fontenot. And I would also like to see them move down here and there and pick up a couple extra day 3 picks. I can move down 5 spots in the second round, still get a defensive tackle, and pick up a 5th rounder. Okay. I like that. Tyler Algier was a 5th rounder. Ryan Newsel was an undrafted free agent. Drew Dahlman, I've got him stuck on the brain. He was a 4th round pick. The only time Terry Fontenot traded down, he got Drew Dahlman out of it. Ended up being the best player out of that entire pick. So I think I am about to get out of here unless y'all have something else like this one. Question: 4th round pick for QB Stetson Bennett? No, and hell no. What is Stetson Bennett? Was he 7th round? When did he get drafted? Stetson Bennett, ref. When did he get drafted? I think he was If he wasn't Mr. Irrelevant, it was close. He was 4th round. All right. Has his value gone up based on what he's done in the NFL, or has it gone down? Or has it stayed the same? I wouldn't send a 4th rounder for Stetson Bennett. He has been coached and worked for and played for Sean McVay, who's had success at the quarterback position with a couple of pretty good quarterbacks. Jared Goff left LA and has had success as well. And Matthew Stafford, to me, is one of the best quarterbacks that's ever suited up. But I don't think Stetson Bennett has become more valuable on this one. Trenton says Stefanski's protecting his QB as his first move, competence. Now, where does that come in? You've got 5 guys returning. They're all under contract this year. Jake Matthews, Ryan Newsel, Matthew Bergeron, Chris Lindstrom, Caleb McGarry. Whoa, did this happen for real? Did the Bills really fire McDermott? Did that just really happen? I know we're live here, or is this just speculation on this? Because we've had a lot of crazy stuff happen in the last, as we are going live. Sean McDermott out in Baltimore by Tom Pelissero. Is that 11 teams now? I've lost count. I think that's 10. 10 out of 32 teams. 22 out of 32 teams kept their, a third of the league has turned over head coach. And I'll ask this again. Does Raheem Morris get a head coaching job? Probably not. You've got 9 open position, and your head coach was so bad last year that he's not qualified to take a new position. That's, to me, is telling of the previous process. What about Arthur Smith? Does Arthur Smith get another job? 9 head coach openings, and your last 2 coaches don't get a spot, are not hired. To me, that tells you the quality of your last couple of hires. So we'll see on that one. And Jay says, I'm glad we got Stefanski. So am I. And listen, I've said this before. It's not a binary world. There's not, this is great and this sucks. I understand why people would have apprehension about Stefanski. I'm not 100% in on anybody. I like the hire, but does that mean I'm 100% confident that he's going to have success in Atlanta? Come on. It's the Atlanta Falcons. I'm not 100% sure about anything that they're going to do. If I'm going to bet, I'd bet that he ends up being fired, because they all end up getting fired. That's just the way it is. Can he have some success along the way? I like what he did in Cleveland for the most part that helped get him another opportunity in Atlanta. I like how he matches up with what Atlanta has in the roster that they have. I think he's an improvement over what Atlanta has had. And Atlanta was one play away from being in the playoffs this year. Is 8-9 and tied for first. One game swings another direction on one play. They're 9-8 and they're in the playoffs. So I'm hopeful that this team is better in 2026 than they were in 2025. I am. I think they should be. So we will see. Trenton says, if Smith and Morris don't get a job, I'll be embarrassed. I don't think they will. I mean, have you heard them? Arthur Smith keeps getting interviews. And why not? But I'll be surprised if they do as well. But that's 10 guys that are out. All right. Sean McDermott or Kevin Stefanski? What do y'all think about that? If you wanted a guy with previous head coaching experience, it doesn't even have to be, but you had a bunch of those show up this year, because there were 10 coaches that became available. So there's 10 coaches with head coaching experience that are out there. You had John Harbaugh, and hell, Matt LaFleur was close. You had Mike McCarthy, you had Kevin Stefanski, you had, Mike McDaniel. Now you've got Sean McDermott. What was your choice of those guys if you could pick? I think the Falcons got, at worst, their number 2 choice behind Harbaugh. At worst. And Stefanski might have been their number one choice. Now, again, whether or not you got it right, we do know that Stefanski was in demand. We know that. They hired Stefanski. They targeted Stefanski. They got Stefanski. That's a good job. They did a good job of acquiring their target. Now, how it works out, we'll see. But Smart Right says this goes back to should the Falcons have waited maybe for LaFleur, and I think they did. Well, I don't know if they did or not, but it ended up not mattering. I'd rather have Stefanski than McDermott. Brett Richardson, he says, y'all get so caught up in an offensive or defensive coach. What we need is a leader of men. To me, Mike Tomlin would have been the perfect coach. I would have thrown the bag at him. Brett, I'm a huge Mike Tomlin fan. I don't know how long you've been watching the show, but I've been a Mike Tomlin fan for a long, long time. Mike Tomlin's not available this year. He's not going to coach this year. And then when he does come back, let's say he just sits out 1 year. So, do you have I saw someone else say this, and I was like, oh, they're gonna sit out for Tom. It was like Cleveland. They're gonna sit out for Mike Tomlin, and they're gonna get Mike Tomlin. I was like, what? They're gonna have an interim coach for a year. They're gonna have a coach for a year, then fire him, and then hire Mike Tomlin, or have Tomlin put in his guy and just be a puppet for a year, because Mike Tomlin's sitting out this year, and then you have to make a trade with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So Mike Tomlin would have been my number one pick, but he's not available. So I don't put him on the list. I love him. I think Mike Tomlin is awesome. I think a change of scenery is going to do him well. A new voice, and be reinvigorated with a new challenge. And I would have loved Mike Tomlin, but he wasn't available. So I scratch him off the list, because I agree with you. And that's why I said offensive or defensive. That's why Harbaugh was my number one choice. Well, he's a special teams coach. Yeah, but he's a coach. He's head coach. I've been offense this whole time because, of the available candidates, because if you have success, your offensive coordinator gets hired. That's just, we saw Matt Ryan do it. We've seen it happen in Tampa Bay the last couple of years. We've seen it happen in the history of this league. Defensive coaches lose their offensive coordinators when they have success. And it's hard to keep redoing that. But there's obviously exceptions. Bill Belichick, obviously an exception. Mike Tomlin, never had a losing season, defensive guy. There are some. Mike McDonald's killing it up in Seattle. Can he sustain it? Because he'll probably lose his offensive coordinator this year. So we'll see. But I agree with you. Tomlin, Harbaugh, those would have been terrific choices as head coaches. Forget offense, defense. I agree with you on that. But he ain't available, and Harbaugh wasn't picked. So the Buffalo Bills now have an opening as well. Who gets that spot? Chris says, you got a hunch or a feeling about our next GM? I've thought it was Ian Cunningham for a while, just because it seems like the Falcons and Bears have been tied at the hip the last 4 years. But I see a lot of what is in San Francisco and the success they've had in building a system and building an infrastructure that I think is more stable than what Chicago has had recently. But Ian Cunningham also comes from the Eagles and Ravens. So to me, that's more of the selling point than that he's with the Bears. And the Bears have gotten better since he's been there, no doubt. I don't know. I'm happy with either one of them. I really am. Bills are going to be a top spot. Yes, they will. McCarthy to the Bills. Actually, McCarthy's got some Pittsburgh ties. I think what Schefter was saying. He's from that area. McCarthy ended up back in there. And Brandon says, do we do the process backwards again, hiring the coach before the GM? Look, there's 10 open spots for head coach. There were 2 for general manager, and the competition for head coaches was a lot more. And you're talking about all this. I know I can focus in on, I have no competition for Ian Cunningham and Josh Williams right now. None. I can talk to them and get their opinion on, hey, I'm just doing a background check. What do you think of Kevin Stefanski? He's great. If I had a chance to work with him, I'd love to. So if you don't think the next general manager was consulted on the hire of Kevin Stefanski, you're nuts. So It happened. Let's see. That says Delilah. So we're getting the Cleveland Browns offensive coordinator. In a sense, he's Kevin Stefanski. Now he could bring Tommy Reese with him, who is a pretty good coach in his own right, and he's young. He's 33. Was at Notre Dame as quarterbacks coach and offensive coordinator for 7 years. Offensive coordinator for Alabama, and then spent the last 2 years in Cleveland. So he's probably coming with him. Yeah, Brandon, there's only one left. I think it was the Dolphins, and I think they filled theirs, and the Falcons. The Falcons take their time at general manager, and they're talking. I guarantee you they're talking. So, and Ted Graham said, it doesn't really matter who gets hired first. Yeah, but it matters that you don't lose your general manager candidate because of who you hired at head coach. And I promise you that didn't happen. I don't know who's number one on their board, but if they don't get their number one, it's because that guy wanted to stay where he is for one more year, and maybe the Falcons weren't. It wasn't because they hired Kevin Stefanski. They were consulted on the Kevin Stefanski hire. I promise you that. On that note, I feel like I missed a super that came in. I think I got everybody, but just in case, let me check. The last one was from Trenton, who's also a member. So I'm going to get out of here. My voice is starting to give out. We're over an hour. It's been crazy busy. Keep those notifications on because it's going to happen soon now. What are the Falcons waiting for? They're waiting for their top two most connected candidates to be out of the playoffs. That happened. San Francisco got beat. Chicago got beat. Ian Cunningham, Chicago Bears, is now available for interview/hire. And Josh Williams, San Francisco 49ers, is now available interview/hire. And right now it looks like Arthur Blank and Matt Ryan are not effing around. And this could happen in the next day or two with the general manager. So AJ, thank you for signing up and becoming a member and joining the nest. Trenton coming in with several super chats. Mike as well. Jay Black, good to see you. Charles, a couple times. Thank you, my friend. Michael, helping me out with my brain fart on the starting center for the Atlanta Falcons is Ryan Newsel. You moron. Thank you. Thank you for keeping me going this morning, Mike. And let's see. Real talk, gentlemen. I did get this one. And I think that is everybody we're saying shout outs to. Make sure you hit those notifications because, again, we'll go live. If anything breaks, we'll have a gut reaction. And I'm also putting up videos all the time that are not necessarily live streams, but videos from the Atlanta Falcons. And you're not going to want to miss the Senior Bowl stuff, I promise you. Going down there with 2 cameras, hopefully come out of there with 80 highlight videos. The offensive and defensive lines get about 500,000 views each. So looking forward to doing that starting next week. And by then, the Atlanta Falcons will have a general manager in place, and they'll have some people scouting the Senior Bowl, I promise you. Y'all enjoy the rest of your day. Hopefully you got a day off and are enjoying it. Appreciate y'all being here. We'll see you next time.